For more on this story, we can bring in France 24's international affairs editor Armin Georgian. Armin, what exactly were French troops doing in the region?
Well, they were in an area which is considered to be a hotbed of jihadist activity, but French troops have been in Mali for several years. They were actually invited by the Malian authorities to intervene in the country in order to stop the jihadists who'd come down from the north of the country and were threatening to make it all the way to Bamako, the capital. So France at that point launched what was called Operation Serval, and when that ended in 2014, this current operation succeeded it. This operation is called Barkhane, so that's been going on for 5 years now.
Robbery at dawn in one of Europe's oldest museums. The haul, worth more than $1 billion, included 3 18th century sets of jewelry made of diamonds, rubies and emeralds. The thieves forced a window before smashing a glass cabinet in the nearly 300-year-old museum. There was a power cut in the area during the heist. German officials say the stolen treasures will be impossible to sell in the open market because they are so easy to identify. The museum in Dresden has one of Europe's largest collections of treasures. The collection survived the bombing that destroyed the city during World War II. They were later taken by Soviet forces, finally being returned in 1958.
The authorities say Turkish F-16 fighters and other planes will conduct high and low altitude flights over Ankara, where the skies are dark grey today. We're expecting a storm, to test the S-400's radar systems. Why over Ankara? Because the S-400s were delivered to Merted Air Base, which is on the outskirts of the city, in July. Now, the Americans are pushing Turkey not to use this Russian weapons system, which is very advanced. It's state-of-the-art air defense technology. But today and yesterday's tests, it's a 2-day testing period, Monday and Tuesday, indicate that Turkey is going to go ahead with the project.
Now, a powerful earthquake has hit Albania. The Defence Ministry reports that at least 6 people have died. The 6.4 magnitude quake struck just north of the capital, Tirana. A number of aftershocks have been felt and the authorities have called on people to stay outside.
Well, the damage is quite extensive across central Albania. Emergency crews are still digging with their hands and with heavy equipment in the village of Thumane, close to the epicenter where 2 buildings collapsed. Also in the portal town of portal city of Durrës, there is another collapsed building, and they are still looking for survivors out there.
A warning from Iran. The head of Iran's Revolutionary Guard telling a crowd in Tehran yesterday, if the United States and its Middle Eastern allies cross its, quote, red line, they will be destroyed. The Islamic Republic dealing with nationwide protests over an increase in fuel prices. Iran blaming the United States and its allies for the demonstrations, despite the fact that they raised food prices and the price of food and fuel has been soaring.
Yeah, good to see you, Maria.
Let's first start on what Iran did. So Iran raises the price of fuel on top of all other commodities having seen price increases, and that brought on the demonstrations, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it just exacerbated an already tense situation because the economy, the downfall of it is just squeezing the life out of the people in Iran. The only people that are spared are the elites.
Now we begin with breaking news coming out of the Democratic Republic of Congo. UN peacekeepers have shot dead 2 protesters after more than 1,000 people stormed a UN base in the town of Beni. The protesters are angry about an increasing number of attacks by rebels in the area. The city appears to be on lockdown and gunshots can be heard. Earlier, at least 8 people were killed in an overnight assault blamed on a rebel group calling itself the Allied Democratic Forces.
What I've experienced myself this morning, the situation is still very tense, but in the morning it was more tense than you can see in the previous image. Gunshots, people attacking the main UN building in the town of Beni. Then the UN soldiers, they were trying to defend themselves, defend the building, but it was very difficult. Then 2 people were just killed.
Leonard Miller was here inside of his home when all of a sudden he heard all kinds of screaming and banging at the door. Miller came outside and it was the little girl who lives next door here. She said the family pit bull had her sister. Miller picked up the first thing he could find, this toy soldier Nutcracker. He went inside and he went to work. The first thing Leonard Miller saw was that the pit bull had the little girl pinned, his jaws locked down on her upper arm.
Had her and just shaking her and growling. Oh. And I hit the dog on the head, I don't know how many times. It didn't faze that dog. Didn't faze it.
Miller said he had hit the dog 4 or 5 times on the head, but he couldn't give up on the little girl, so he started swinging again.
So I got it and I hit it on the back several times, and it released the little girl then.
For Uber's 3.5 million users in London, this decision's been a long time coming. The refusal to give a new licence to the ride-hailing company follows 2 years of argument between Uber and regulators. Now Transport for London says enough is enough. The city's mayor says Uber has been failing to protect its customers.
There are at least 14,000 journeys where somebody using Uber has thought the person driving them was one person, but in fact it's been somebody else. There have also been examples where drivers who've had their licence suspended or dismissed have been allowed to continue to be an Uber driver. These are serious failings.
Uber rejects the claim it's unsafe, saying it's vetted every one of its 50,000 drivers in London.
An aircraft scrapping is something not many people enjoy seeing, whether it be a 30-year-old 747, an old A380, maybe even an A310 or a Boeing 757. However, seeing a plane as new as the A380 head to the scrap certainly shocked a number of people. Aerosave were the ones behind the dismantling of the very first project with the A380. The project is actually a lengthy one as well. Dismantling a jet this big obviously comes with its problems, and with that it's now being completed in November, nearly 11 months after it begun, with the project launching at the start of the calendar year. A project like this doesn't just have the likes of Tarmac Aerosave involved though. Dr. Peters, who have also been mentioned previously, were also in on the act and they were partnering up with Tarmac. Meanwhile, all those important parts that were stripped have now been taken away and will be sold by VAS Aero Services.
Remember that. An eye for an eye, sometimes innocence that. Where's being real got you, huh?
Blue Story depicts the life of 2 teenage rivals embroiled in a gangland war in South London. But its creator, Ratman, says essentially it's a film about love, not violence.
There was no denying the violence, however, which erupted on Saturday at a cinema complex in Birmingham, which was showing the film. Involving around 100 people, 6 teenagers were arrested, several officers were injured, and 2 machetes and a knife were recovered, prompting Chains, Showcase and View to withdraw Blue Story from all their outlets. Something one of its actors says is incredibly disappointing.
It's a thing of voicelessness, and when this decision gets made, it makes you feel a lot like, is it that easy for them to just, take away our voice? That's the issue. That's why people are outraged.